276. Now that we've seen some of the background stuff that we need to know, through all of the content in chapter 1, it's time to finally, I know for some of you it is like, it's about damn time. It's time to finally get to a C++ program. So here in chapter 2.1, we've got some parts of a C++ program. Really, these are the parts that we are going to see. It is not an exhaustive, inclusive list of everything, but it's enough to finally get us started. So what I'm going to do here is tell you that these are on pages 27 through like 29 or 30, I believe. Otherwise, it is section 2 underscore, or 2 dot rather, 1. I am going to bounce back and forth between here in the text, and what you'll see behind me here is a replit window, just so that you can see what it looks like in code, as opposed to just seeing what it looks like in code over here in just simple green. So is there any real difference there? No, none whatsoever. It's just that we'll see code for the most part as part of a replit window. So we may as well do that here as well. So first and foremost, again, you can follow along here with page 27. Otherwise, I'm going to be here in replit just so that you can see, how these parts really interact in an honest to buttons stand up C++ program. First and foremost, here on line number 1, and you will notice that our lines are numbered. It's one of the benefits to using a text editing environment or an IDE is that we actually do get things like line numbers, which is supremely helpful. You'll see on line number 1 right there, I have those 2 forward slashes, / And what that does is it lets C++ and the environment know that this is a comment. What a comment is for is you and me. It is something that the machine itself ignores, but it allows to stay there for communication between developers. What I'll tell you is here in replit, if you just select any line and say it's control / if you are on a Windows PC or on a Chromebook, and if you are in a Mac, it's command / so I'm on a Mac. And you'll see that that whole line is commented in, so that means it is available. Do it again, control / or command /, and here you'll see that that line is commented out. So a comment is for you, a comment is for me. So if, for example, you send me a piece of code and you're saying, hey, something is wrong, it's just not working, typically speaking, I just don't fix things for you. I put a comment in there and let you know this is what I'm seeing. I usually give you what breadcrumbs I use to determine what was wrong. So I'll say, you can see by the output so-and-so, and then I will suggest to you what a fix might be. But probably infuriatingly, I do not correct those for you. So 2 forward slashes makes a comment. Control / on a Windows or a Chromebook, command / on a Mac. So that's line number 1. Line number 2, when you see a line that has that hashtag or the pound symbol in front of it, this is what is known as a preprocessor directive. A preprocessor directive simply tells C++, hey, we're going to need stuff that is located externally. It is located in what are known as header files someplace else. Now, in C++ 276, we are only going to use some of these pre-made, prefabricated header files. In C++ 277, you will actually create them yourself. So what I would suggest to you here on line number 2, include IOStream. That gives us the header file that allows us to use things like my keyboard, my mouse, and my monitor. Without that, we can't interact with them. So I'm just going to say pound include, and you can see that replit on the pound INC has already filled in, he must mean include. So I'm going to select, just by saying down and then enter, a one that includes a header file. So you can see it's already starting that for me with the less than sign. And I'm going to say string. That's one of the ones we are going to use pretty consistently here, actually starting with chapter 3. And you can see it's already filling it in for me. So if I go down and hit enter, it's going to fill that in for me. This is a really nice benefit of using an IDE is code completion. So like 2 years ago, it is 2 years ago now, I hurt my arm. I had to have surgery on my bicep, and I can't quite tip my left hand in as far as my right. And it is still having an impact because I'm slow to learn. On how I can type, I rely on code completion more now than I ever thought I would. This really does make it nice. Now, before we continue, I'm going to add an extra line of blank space here. White space is for you, the developer. It is for the next developer in the chain. It does not have any impact. Now, I can hear Stack Exchange yelling at me, and they can just shush for the time being. For you and me, the white space here will not have any impact on how long it takes to run our programs. It has no impact there. But what it does do is make things easier for you to see, to read the code, and to see what's happening there. So here, I certainly encourage you to use white space. There's no reason that everything has to be crammed on top of one another without spacing in between. For the most part, the code samples that you'll see that I create do have both commenting and white space in there. And that's so that it's easier for you as a novice coder to read. So there is white space, line number 4. This, line number 5, using namespace Std. What we are saying is we are calling this a standard space. That's what the Std is short for. What we are suggesting to the compiler and to the runtime environment is, hey, everything here I want to be able to call by one name. That's the namespace idea. And I'm going to call it standard. Now, we could have in other courses, we're not going to worry about that here. And as a matter of fact, we only barely worry about it in C++ 277 in advanced, is we can have other namespaces. We're not going to worry about that. For us, we are going to, and I hate to reuse the word include here because on lines 3 and 4, I have these includes, which is opening and linking to another external file, a header. This is not that kind of include. It is, anyway, you are going to add, maybe that's more appropriate, add this to every C++ project that you create, because otherwise it creates problems. And again, I can hear Stack Exchange getting their muster all up here about you don't need to use a namespace. It's okay. We're going to. So that is line number 5. Line number 7 right here, int main. Now, this is the start of what is known as a function. We are going to build our own functions in chapters 5, 6, and 7. But for here right now, the function that we are going to do all of our work inside of is main. Now, we do need a function main in order for everything to run. There's a couple of parts here, and it's the next several lines we'll talk about, that all belong together for this function main. First and foremost, we will talk about this in much more depth in chapter 5. The int right here suggests that our function called main is going to have a return. A return simply means that when this function is done, it gives something back to C++. And that is right here, this return statement, return 0. This essentially signifies it's the end of main. That gives our program a way to stop, to terminate, to stop running. We will see different return types later on, but for right now, this is important. We have to have this line here. So this return on line number 10 reaches back, I suppose, here to line number 7, and it's the return type for our function. The function is what you can see there as listed with those open and closed parens. It is called main. The other things to notice here are our left brace and our right brace, often also referred to as curly braces. These braces signify what is known as a statement block. The things inside of these braces go together. In chapters 2 and a little bit in chapter 3, everything goes together. But after about the middle of chapter 3, it's not all going to be one big jumble of structural code, top to bottom, left to right, exclusively in that order only. We're going to be able to jump around in our code based on the algorithmic, the programmatic design that we have. So for right now, this statement block simply is going to hold everything that you do in chapter 2. It's all going to be here in the function called main. It's all going to be here in the function called main inside of my left and right braces or curly braces. And that's what you'll see there. Finally, is right here on line number 9, we can see our cout object. I'm just going to go ahead and hit run up here. I'm going to double check to make sure you can see that. You can. And you can see over here on my right hand window, you can see that the output is happening here. Program is great fun. This cout and then the less than is going to initiate the cout object. Whatever we have here on the right-hand side of that object, inside of quotation marks for the time being, we're going to change or add a little bit more of the rule structure to that later. But for right now, whatever we have on the right-hand side of our cout statement is going to be outputted to our right-hand window with the output of what we see there. And then you can see right here on the end of line number 9, we have the semicolon. This is like a period at the end of a sentence. This signifies that this is the end of a line of code. So you can see on line number 9, I have a period. You can see on line number 10, not a period, a semicolon, signifying the end of the line. Here on line number 10, I have a semicolon signifying the end of my program sentence. So those are the parts of a program. I do want to mention here, this is on page 30. We do have a table. It's table 2_2-1 of special characters. Just a couple of things to note. The double slash, the 2 forward slashes we've already talked about, that marks the beginning of a comment. The pound sign, we've already talked about that. It's a preprocessor directive. That's something that we are going to tell C++ during the compile time, during the linking stage, where to go get these files, these headers that we need in order to extend the functionality that we were looking at there. Opening and closing brackets, these are things that enclose a file name, for example, when we have a preprocessor directive. Opening and closing parentheses, these are what we use either mathematically to indicate things like precedence, so first, inner, outer, last, that kind of stuff does show up a little bit here. Otherwise, it would indicate that this is a function, and this is what to associate with that function. We will give you the real term for that when we get there. Opening and closing braces, this is of statement block. It forces a group of individual program sentences, as it were, to go together. Here we can see the two opening and closing quotation marks. That signifies a string that goes out to the output window. Don't worry, we'll talk about strings here in a little bit as well. And finally, a semicolon. A semicolon marks the end of a program statement. So a period at the end of a sentence. So that's the different parts. Now we'll start getting into what each of these different parts really means.